Hello and welcome to this podcast, Little Girls Aren't Taught This. I am your host, Self-Love Lydia, and this is a self-love podcast unlike no other. Within this podcast, we will go into all of the things that we should have been taught as little girls that would have helped us feel empowered, connected, and just unapologetic as we grew into women. I am the queen of deep transformations. I am on a mission to impact women around the world with self-love, and I am here to teach you how to be unapologetic and just step into your power. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey you guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. This week's episode is serving more of like a brain dump. No, more of like an update and a chat, to be fair. So when you listen to this episode, I just want it to feel like you are in a room with me and we are having a conversation. And you know, one of the things I love about building my own business and putting my content out is I get to do it in a way that feels good for me. So sometimes I choose to teach, sometimes I choose to inspire, sometimes I choose to bring a guest on, and sometimes I just really choose to give you like a snapshot from my soul and where I am up to, and I just come on here and I just treat my podcast as if it is an audio journal, and I am just speaking my thoughts and I am just connecting with you guys, and yeah, that's the purpose of today's episode. So the title is Grab a Coffee and Let's Talk About Life. I actually do have coffee with me. I have a oatmeal cappuccino, and I just had a really strong calling before to get a coffee, come up to my office, close my door and just update you guys on what's going on in the best way that I can. There's a lot of things that I can't talk about at the moment because the pieces are everywhere, but you know, very soon I will be able to talk about that hopefully and give you a proper update on the next chapter of my life that's coming. And I guess this episode is just serving as like a window into how I'm feeling at the moment. And I just also want to talk about phases of life and life in general, because I don't know about you guys, but it just feels like it's just been a really crazy roller coaster since 2020. And it just feels like something that was so consuming all of a sudden is gone and life's back to normal. And I'm just like, wow, what was that? That was so bizarre. And also, I just feel like we've literally not had, well, like me personally anyway, I've not had a minute since 2020. Like, I just continue to be getting test after test from the universe. And, you know, I'm here and I'm getting through them. But I also wouldn't mind a bit of a break. But I guess I'm also realising that that's just life, getting all of these various tests and stuff. But I want to open this week's episode with a quote by Theodore Roosevelt. So you would have heard this if you've listened or read any of Brené Brown's work on vulnerability, and it's called The Woman in the Arena. And I want to share this with you, and I really want you to listen to the words of this poem because it's absolutely inspiring. And what it talks about is that vulnerability and leaning in as opposed to leaning out and observing those people and judging those people who choose to lean in. And it's all about the courage that it takes to lean in. So it is not the critic who counts, not the woman who points out how the strong woman stumbles, or we're the doer of deeds because I've done them better. The credit belongs to the woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is married by dust and sweat and blood, who strives, who is, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends herself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end of triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if she fails, at least she fails by daring greatly. so that her place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat. How stunning is that? And if you really take time to unpack that, what it's saying is the woman in the arena, if she fails, at least she dared greatly. At least she leant into her edges. At least she had the courage to go again. And she is there fighting for the things that she wants. She is not in the sidelines with those cold and timid souls who will never know victory, nor will they never know defeat, because they are staying exactly where they are and they are being onlookers. And the reason why I felt really called to open this episode with that is because at the moment I am going through huge transitions in my life, and there's a lot of endings happening and there's a lot of new beginnings happening, and it just feels like something. I'm just aware of it. There's one obviously ending and a new beginning happening that at some point in the near future I will talk about, which is, huge, like really big. There's the end of my 20s coming up. And recently I have been guided by the universe and shown that I think there's a transition about to happen in the teachings that I am teaching and the way that I am showing up and serving with self-love and the coach that I am. And this was really unexpected, and to be honest, it took a lot of processing, so it came to me last week. And what's really interesting is the universe has been leaving me breadcrumbs, and the universe has been giving me experiences for a fucking year leading up to this point. And, that's why I just wanted to say in this episode, grab a coffee and let's just have a conversation, because I really, really want you to understand that if you're feeling or you can relate with any of this, know that things are happening for you right now that will have outcomes that you don't even know about. Like, you can't even imagine what some of those outcomes will be. And you may be going through experiences now that don't make sense or that are difficult. And what's happening is the universe is creating layer after layer after layer, and it is leading you down a road that is going to steer you in a different direction, or it is going to steer you and show you something completely different, whether that's in relation to your next evolution, whether that's in relation to your business, whether that's in relation to you as a partner, a new relationship, a new job, whatever it is. If you just keep going, if you keep going, if you keep going, if you keep showing up, then I guarantee you will get some kind of answer, or you will get shown something, or you will be guided somewhere. And that is exactly what's been happening to me over the past year. And it just so happens that it's been a lot of actually tough fucking lessons, like a lot of tough lessons. It's actually been very emotional and very difficult getting to this point. But I know that's how the universe works, and I know this is part of the journey, and I know this is part of what I signed in for. Often when we are daring greatly, we are not in situations that are flower beds and sunshine. We are in that arena. We have dust and sweat and blood on our face, and we are getting knocked down, and we are getting up again with courage, and we are just fighting, and we are going, and we are going, and we are going, and we are being there for ourselves again. Even when everybody on the sidelines is shouting or people have turned our backs on us, we get up, we dust ourselves off, we wipe that sweat, and we go again, and we are in that arena. And I think that is definitely symbolic of the last year. So I just think it's really interesting how we don't really talk a lot about phases of life and, endings and new beginnings, and how actually emotive they can be and what they can bring up in terms of, sense of identity and sense of knowing who you are. And I think we always know who we are. And then I don't know about you guys with the type of work that you do, but I know for me, I always think I know who I am. And then I go through this huge process, or this like life will bring me this experience, and it makes me discover who I am on a different level, or it makes me discover a different part about myself. It makes me discover a different layer of my humanness, of who I am as a woman. And I'm like, whoa, I literally thought I had my shit down. Like, I literally thought I knew who I was. And yeah, that recently I've been finding a little bit unsettling, to be honest, and just getting curious about it, because I'm also like super excited and like really feel like I just keep having like really strong spiritual experiences of connecting with source. You know, back in January I had my first experience with psychedelics, and in my office in my house I went into the most profound experience with mushrooms, and I connected with source, and they told me everything that I needed. It was like a deep male voice. He told me everything that I needed to do for the next phase, all of the lessons that were coming my way. No, he didn't tell me the lessons, sorry. All of the things that I needed to integrate in order for, you know, what I'd been told to actually play out in my life. And yeah, he told me that he'd brought me to rock bottom, basically. And then I had a strong connection with the divine feminine, and she told me again why all of these things were happening, and it was just intense and it was beautiful, and it's been so profound. And it just so happened that last week I think I got the actual message of where I've been guided to over the last year, and why all the experiences I've had them. Does that make sense? So like it made sense why everything I've been through the past year, like bad investments and losing a lot of money and learning a lot about business and learning a lot about self-worth and showing up in a different level and working through your shit, and like truly fucking having to wake up every single day and fight for what it is that you want and get yourself back to a level that feels good, and just so many lessons that I'll probably talk about one day. But you know, the message came through, and it was that about the teaching of self-love, and I just think it's about to change, and I think it's about to become, I think I'm always going to teach self-love. I think that is very much the anchor of what it is that I teach. But I just think I've outgrown teaching it in the way that I do. And that was very uncomfortable. And I think that's why I just felt called today to talk. Just basically have a chat and talk away. Because I've never really seen anybody talk about that. And I actually feel a little bit emotional talking about it now. But you know, sometimes you have no control over the route that happens in life. And even when you don't want something to happen, like I'm sure you've been in this position with a relationship where you love somebody so much, but it's just not fucking working. And you just don't want it to end, but you know that it has to end, and you're trying to like push against that and avoid it. But it's just there, and the universe is just showing you that it's not working. And it just becomes like impossible to ignore, and it kind of becomes out of your control. Like I'm sure you can relate to that in any situation. I know I've had that with relationships before in the past. And it's just got to the point where it was out of my control, the fact that the relationship had to end. And I kind of feel like that with the transition that's coming forward is like, now that I've been given that and offered that and shown that by the universe, it feels really difficult to ignore that. And as much as I want to ignore it, and as much as I want to stay possibly where I am teaching the way that I am teaching, there's a part of me when I received that download that just knew that what was coming forward was right and felt exciting and made sense and all of these things. And you know, some of you may be listening to this and thinking, fucking hell, like what's she even talking about? Like, it's just, I don't know, like it's just self-love or just whatever. And I'm saying that because I've had thoughts over the weekend of like, why do I feel so emotional about this? Like, why am I resisting this so much? Like, why am I so scared of this? And I think it's because everything that I've built and created with Self-Love Lydia and the programs and the impact, like everything I teach genuinely means the world to me. Like, I didn't create the divine thinking it would end up impacting like 40 women around the world. Like I just created it in my bedroom from pure love and want to help women. And it's incredible. And this new phase means that it's losing those parts. And it's letting go of the teachings now, and it's letting go of the programs, which means that it's letting go of part of me, and it's letting go of that phase. Does that make sense? And you know, I embody everything that I teach, and the divine and all, and everything the past 2 years in terms of teaching that. And I say 2 years, but truly I feel like I've been teaching self-love and body image now for about 4.5 years, because I was teaching it when I was a personal trainer. I was talking about it and stuff. I was just helping women in a different way. And it just feels like maybe I've outgrown it now. And that just feels uncomfortable, and it makes me feel sad because it feels like a new phase, like another ending and a beginning is happening. And like, I know that's exciting, but yeah, I just love teaching the way that I teach, the things that I teach as a coach and helping women, the way that I help. But I just can't help but think this new transition is right, and this new transition is what Lydia 2022 deserves. Like, I kind of feel like she deserves to step into her power now, and I kind of feel like she deserves to have her place and help women the way she knows she can help women. I feel like 2020 Lydia, you know, honestly, I feel like I'm such a different woman. And I guess also that's like one of the other things is like in business, for you to have a product or like a service or like a program for 2 years, it's not long. Like, it's really not long. But I just feel like, and I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I feel like the woman I was at the beginning of 2020 is so fucking different to who I am now. Like, yes, we go through growth, but I feel like I've gone through a rapid growth. And I think that's because obviously the loss of me nan, you know, the health issues last year, isolation, doing the masters, making an investment going wrong, losing a fuckload of money. Like, there's just a lot that's happened over the past 24 months. And because I've worked through that on my own, and I've really committed to the work, that rapid change has happened. And it feels like that phase has ended. And it feels like there's a new phase beginning and a new version of me about to step out and step forward and help women in a different way. But we don't talk about this, do we? We don't bloody talk about phases of life and the change and the stuff that brings, and the shedding and the letting go. Like, we literally don't talk about that. And you know, that's sometimes what does put me off a little bit, you know, like doing the self-development work, because I always have this fear like I'll end up just waking up one day and I would have outgrown everything that I cared about. Like, even my relationship, and I'll be like, I don't want this. Like, I don't want to have outgrown this. And I think that scares me a little bit sometimes. because the rapid rate that I seem to like evolve as a woman, and I think now spiritually as well, and just waking up one day and just like feeling like I've outgrown my relationship, and you know that's what I envision. Like I just love my partner so much, just love him so much, and I want our vision together. And I know that sometimes when you do the work, you have no control over the things that feel out of alignment anymore, and it's very, very difficult to ignore that. It's very difficult to ignore when something feels out of alignment, and that's where I feel like I'm at the moment. Like it's difficult for me to ignore that download that came. So, you know, if you guys are ever going through any rapid periods of growth or just growth in general, and you're feeling any of these things, then I just hope this podcast serves as a reminder that it's okay and it's normal. You know, it's normal for you to not want the change that's happening to happen. It's normal for you not want to outgrow friends, to outgrow a job, to outgrow a loved one, to outgrow even your hobbies. Like, because if they make a part of who you are and they solidify your identity and your sense of self, it's like you're outgrowing yourself. It's like a snake that's shedding a layer of skin, and it's not easy. It's actually uncomfortable, I think, personally. But sometimes we can go through, like we can outgrow things and it feels exciting, and it feels, and this in a way does feel exciting as well. But this is not the first time I've gone into a new phase of my life. You know, I've gone into phases before and lost friends, and it's been lonely. It's been fucking lonely in the past when that's happened, because you know, you just wake up one morning and you just realise that the people in your life aren't really aligning with you anymore, and it doesn't feel good to be around them. So you show up for yourself, but in doing so you just feel like you're lonely until you find that next group of people to be around, or like those new hobbies, or that, I don't know, stepping into that new job, whatever it is. But as we all know, like no growth comes in comfort, and I think every time we choose to step out and lean into our edges, we literally are choosing to step into growth, to be honest. Oh, it's a lot, my loves. It is really, really, really a lot, but I don't know. Yeah, it just feels exciting as well. It feels really exciting, and I guess also it feels like I'm honouring what I'm being shown. And another quote from Brene Brown, Rising Strong, the book, if you've ever read it, is vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's our greatest measure of courage. And I feel like stepping into the growth and the new phases, it makes me feel vulnerable anyway, because it's like going into the unknown. I think especially with this business change that's possibly coming, and all of these endings that are happening, and just like there's so many endings. And I just think, why does no one fucking tell us about how hard it is? Why does no one like talk about how the evolution of the self is hard and can feel a little bit overwhelming, but like incredible at the same time? It's like you're holding two sides of the same coin. Yeah, there's a lot of change coming, and yeah, I just need to figure out how I'm gonna process the transition, and if it does 100% feel right. Like I really need to sit with it. And so my invitation actually that I wanted to share in this episode is, if you're feeling or resonating with any of the stuff that I'm saying, and again, you know, I didn't come onto this podcast with any notes or to teach anything. Like literally I'm not teaching, I'm just talking. I'm literally just talking my thoughts out and how I'm feeling. So if you resonate with any of it, what I would suggest is taking time to really sit and journal, and you know, like connect with the universe and ask the universe for a sign. Like, get really specific over what your sign is. You know, journal on these things that you're feeling, meditate on them, maybe pull some tarot cards. Have conversations as well with people around you, because one of the things I've found since that download came is I'm so close to my own stuff, obviously, and I am me. And, you know, while I'm trying to navigate and figure out, like, what the fuck was this download that's just come forward, I chose to, like, speak to some of my really, really good friends about it, and, like, friends who understand me and understand the process that I've been on, like maybe one or two. And I chose to bring them in and really spend time talking about this with them, because they give me an outside perspective, and they give me a perspective that has allowed me to think about different things or question different things or just hear different opinions. And I invite you to do the same, like speak to people around you. And there's a difference in speaking to people and holding conversation and like using it in a way that helps you make sense of the bigger picture, and then also speaking to people and trying to get validation or find the answer, because nobody else is ever going to give you the answer. Like, nobody else is ever going to give me the answer to that download that came. Nobody else can change my business. Nobody else can change the way I teach self-love. Like, that's down to me. But having friends who hold space for me to unravel that and provide valuable input and insight is so important. So notice, you know, if you're seeking the answer and validation when you're holding a conversation, if something's coming up. And also, one of the other things I want to say is really spend time connecting with your intuition and universe. And, you know, if you aren't such a strong believer in spirituality, you know, just connect to your own inner voice. And if you do believe in, you know, higher powers, ask for signs, ask for guidance, like listen, really, really take the time to connect before you rush into making any changes. Because this is one of the other things I've said is, like, as a person, what I tend to do is once I see something, I have to move quick on it. So, like, the analogy I was using the other day to, like, Luke and Annie was, you know, when you have a plaster and it, like, hurts like a bitch to get it off, and you may, like, some people may peel around the edges of the plaster, mightn't they, and just continue peeling, and then get the majority of the plaster off and then, like, rip it off a little bit. And then some people will just be like, I'm going in and ripping this off, and they will just rip the whole thing off without peeling the edges off the hairs around where the plaster's stuck. They will just go in and rip that plaster off. Unfortunately, I'm the second one, which has its pros and cons. But the reason I am the second one is because my business is me, and my business is very much a reflection of what's going on for me and the teachings that I feel alive teaching. So when I got that download the other day and it felt so right and it made so much sense, there's a part of me that just wants to rip the plaster off and move into the next phase. But then there's a part of me that also knows peeling the edges off, in this case, is going to be very fucking beneficial. So if you're, like, actually just, like, what type of person are you? Like, when you sit and think about that, what type of person are you? And if you're the type of person to rip the plaster off, does it make sense for the next phase? Like, is it okay to do that? Is it sustainable to do that? You know, is that the right decision to do? Or do you have to peel the edges off the plaster before you rip it off? And, you know, make subtle, small changes over time with whatever it is that's going on for you, or whatever it is that you can relate to with this episode. But yeah, in terms of, like, getting support and guidance from the universe, like, listen to your intuition. So spend time, like, set your scene, you know, put your candles, your incense, like, relax yourself, set the mood, and just sit and meditate. But try and sit and meditate without music. Just sit and be in the present moment with yourself, and spend a moment or two really focusing on the breath and the body to come into the present moment. And then when you have when you feel like you're relaxed into it, just begin to ask yourself a series of questions like in your internal world, but don't let the mind give you an answer. Just listen to what comes up in the body, like listen to what comes up in the heart space, listen to what your intuition is guiding you to do. And they are ways that you can begin to feel into a new phase, and they are ways that you can begin to feel like you have more control when the evolution is happening and the shedding is happening and the new phase of life is happening. That's something I was offered anyway. That's something I've been doing and I am going to continue to do, and just like a lot of journaling and sometimes just like sitting, like a lot of the time, well, a lot, especially since this download, I've just been sitting with my thoughts, just like pondering and thinking and just being present, like not stimulated by anything else, not a journal, not a book, not my laptop, and just seeing what's alive for me in that moment, like what's present for me. So yeah, I hope that episode served in some purpose. And I just feel like it's been a lot, since 2020, and all of a sudden it's just like life's back to normal. It's like, wow, that was mad, wasn't it? Those fucking 2 years that we had. What a mad 2 years. And then it's just like it's gone. And I'm like, well, I don't really get it. I don't really get that, what was happening. Where's it gone? What's going on? Yeah, I don't know. It's a mad one. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I would love actually your feedback, on this episode, like a DM message, just to hear your thoughts. Because I put this podcast out all the time, and I always say like a podcast is interesting because it's not something that you get like a lot of feedback on, because people listen to podcasts and then, they don't tend to really provide a lot of feedback. But I think for this episode, I'd just like some feedback. Just your thoughts, what you think, if you can relate, how you're feeling and all of the things. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you do want to work with me, the Divine doors are open. They opened last week. And, like I've said on this podcast, I absolutely adore the Divine. It's a self-love program that I created back in 2020. And it looks at all the areas that stop women connecting deeply to themselves. So we look at what self-love is for you. We look at like forgiveness, self-worth, relationships, body image, stepping into your power. Like it's super, super powerful. It's a 12-week program, and some of the transformations are just incredible. Like really, really help transform women's lives and help them connect to self-love in a way that makes sense for them, like really makes sense for them. And this is because this is your journey. So if you would like to work with me, the landing page will be in the show notes. You can drop me a DM on Instagram if you are interested in the Divine. And like I said, your feedback would be amazing. I will also link Brene Brown's book in the show notes as well, Daring Greatly. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I shall be back next week for another one. So I see you, I love you, from my corner to your corner. I am sending you so much self-love, so much warmth, and I shall be back soon. Mwah. Mwah. Mwah.